Hey, what's going on, everybody? Welcome back. Gerald here with your weather forecast. Congratulations, we have all made it through the great ice storm of 2023, and hopefully that's the worst we see this year in terms of ice, because it was quite the doozy for some of us, especially down there into Austin. It looked like upwards of half an inch of ice fell for some of us, so that's definitely plenty enough to cause problems, and it sure did for those of you in those areas that were impacted. But moving forward, much nicer weather going into this weekend for most of the southern half of the country, although if you're up in the northeast, let me tell you, very different story. Going into tomorrow, we've got quite the cold shot coming in, even some snow for some of us. In fact, we've got blizzard warnings up for sections of Maine. I'll show you that here in a minute. But once we get through that cold shot, then we look to get a big warm-up going into next week, and I think that will unfortunately help cause more rain and likely some thunderstorms, maybe even some severe storms for some of us going into the middle part of next week. So we're going to break all of that down. I'm going to tell you how long I think the springtime pattern is going to last for us going over the next week or so. And yeah, that's the goal of today's video. Obviously, I do, of course, want to say thank you so much because at the time I'm recording this, we're at 999 subscribers, so really couldn't be a better time to record this in terms of the number of subscribers we're at. So if you have already subscribed, it really does mean the world to me. Every morning I wake up, refresh the page, see how many subscribers I'm at, and it's always just super fun to watch the channel grow, and that is only possible because of all of you watching right now. So thank you very much. And try to interact with these videos in the comments because I love talking to you guys. I love learning about where people are watching from. And I think that's a really cool thing to do on YouTube. And one of the great powers of YouTube is being able to get to know people that you may never actually meet face to face. So that's one of the super cool things about this platform. And one of the goals with this channel is I want to make it really a family-like atmosphere where we all know each other and we help each other out in terms of figuring out this whole weather thing that we do here. But with all that said, this intro has probably gone on way too long already. And I'm a busy guy, and I know all of you are also very busy people, so let's go ahead and get on with it and get to the forecasting because I don't want to waste all of your time today. So looking at radar right now, we have this big blob of precipitation still moving through the southern tier of the country. That, I think, going into tomorrow will move off into the eastern seaboard and bring much nicer weather. Also, you can see up here into Canada, this is that massive cold air that is going to work its way into New England, and this is snow up here, and that's why we have some of those blizzard warnings in Maine that I will talk about here in a minute. But looking at temperatures out there right now and going into this evening, much more marginal here across sections of the country. So those of us that saw that ice, we're finally starting to get above freezing, although going back into tonight, we likely will get back below freezing for a little bit. I'll talk about that here in a second. But looking at those watches and mornings out there, still have a couple of ice storm warnings out there for sections of Arkansas, but going into tonight, much better conditions. That should begin to clear up, and especially into tomorrow, much nicer weather. Pretty much throughout this entire southern half of the country. And then also we do have those blizzard warnings up here into the tip of Maine, where we could see some of those blizzard conditions, and that's how strong this kind of polar Arctic front is that is moving through sections of the northeast going into tonight. So looking at those temperatures tonight, you can see here's that block of that super cold air. It's going to start working its way down here into the northeast. Other than that, though, still have some of these warmer temperatures kind of holding on here throughout the southeast. That will change going into this weekend where that cold air will finally overtake us. But looking at tomorrow, it looks like temperatures will be much better, and I'll show you that here in a second. But I do want to go ahead and time out the rest of this rain that we have to deal with going through the next 24 hours or so. All right, so for those of us here in the southeast, it has been a real soaker really over the past, well, really this entire week. It has been on and off rain. I've had my rain jacket on for what feels like forever here in Charlotte. But luckily, after we get through tomorrow and into tonight, this kind of block of rain that's left over will finally begin to work offshore. So this is going into about midnight tonight. You can see still some heavy downpours from Atlanta up 85 through the Charlotte metro and likely up through Raleigh as well and back towards Birmingham. But by the time we get into sunrise tomorrow, it looks like kind of this block and shield of rain finally works its way offshore. At least starts to work offshore. There will still be some rain left over here in the coastal plain of the southeast. And whenever that happens, we could have enough cold air left over that could get some flakes to mix in with the rain here on the backside here into southeastern North Carolina. Don't expect any accumulations or anything out of it, but could definitely see some flurries or maybe a quick burst of light snow. there on the backside, although temperatures will be so marginal, don't expect really any impacts or accumulations, but would definitely be cool to see. You can see some of those blues kind of try to hold on a little bit here into southeastern North Carolina, but really not expecting much in terms of that, except for maybe some novelty flakes. Luckily, though, by the time we get into tomorrow afternoon, we're really clearing out here across the southeast, except for areas of Florida, down towards Beaufort, South Carolina, Savannah, Georgia. But even for you folks, as we get into tomorrow evening and into the overnight tomorrow, we have that all clear. As for the northeast, tonight is whenever this cold shot and this snow squall of sorts really gets going. So this is right now, you can see we're still pretty calm, but as we get into tonight and we get into about the 6-7 o'clock hour, the snow is going to begin to pick up here into sections of upstate New York, Vermont, New Hampshire, into sections of Maine here where we have that blizzard warning in effect. And then going into the overnight, this squall of snow is going to continue to push through New England, and it's going to begin to slowly kind of deteriorate as it gets down into sections of southern New England. But I definitely think these upper sections, closer to Canada you are, from upstate New York to Vermont, New Hampshire, and Maine, could definitely see a quick burst of heavy snow with those strong winds as well before that Arctic air mass finally settles into place. So how much snow are we talking here? Not a ton, but enough that is worth noting, definitely for sure. So obviously those places that get kind of more stuck into these snow squalls will get more snow, but I'm not really expecting much here for the I-95. I think this snow squall kind of begins to fall apart as it moves through New England. But the bigger story here are those temperatures. So once we get into kind of midnight tonight here, this is whenever this Arctic boundary is really going to begin to move into New England here and cause those problems. So this is for about 6 o'clock, 7 o'clock tomorrow morning. You can see this front still pushing through New England. So it's going to be one of those days that likely it gets colder throughout the day. Your high will likely be about midnight tonight, and then by the time you get into tomorrow afternoon, you're colder than you will be during the middle of the night tonight. And you can see that unfold here as we get into tomorrow afternoon, those single digits taking over here into Boston, teens likely into New York City, and 20s down towards Philly. And then sub-zero temperatures up here into the more northern sections of New England. And then as we get into Friday night, those temperatures get crazy cold. Sub-zero temperatures as far as the coast here into Rhode Island, Connecticut, Boston, definitely below zero, I think, going into Saturday morning here. And then single digits down here into New York City and maybe even down towards Philly, although teens a bit more likely there, and then down into DC as well, more likely to see teens Saturday morning. Before going into Saturday afternoon, we get once again back into the kind of single digits and teens for highs. But you see, as we go into Sunday afternoon, we're already kind of back into warmer conditions. So in Boston, we're going to go from highs in the single digits and teens on Saturday to highs in the 40s likely on Sunday. So that's definitely crazy to see, and crazy to see how quick of a cold shot this is going to be. But the other problem with this cold air is going to be the wind chill. This is downright dangerous wind chills here going into your Saturday morning here, or this is Friday morning, excuse me, sorry. We're getting, close to 30, 40 below here in terms of wind chill values into upstate New York, here through sections of Maine, Vermont, New Hampshire. Then as we get through the afternoon on Friday, that doesn't really get much better. In fact, here on the higher terrains up into New Hampshire, definitely sub 50 degree wind chills. And it'll be very interesting to see up on Mount Washington how cold those wind chill values get. I wouldn't be surprised to see below negative 75 degree wind chills up there onto Mount Washington. So we'll have to watch that. It'll be definitely interesting to see those statistics come out. But even going into Friday night and Saturday morning, those very cold wind chills hang around, especially up here into Maine, before once again rebounding going into kind of Saturday night and into Sunday. So looking at tomorrow's temperatures as a whole here for the country, here's that very cold air that's going to settle in tomorrow into the north. Although a quite nice day in terms of early February standards here for the southeast. And then the mid-Atlantic's going to kind of be stuck in between that very cold air and more of that warm kind of Gulf air. But that definitely changes going into Saturday here, into Saturday morning, I should say. We get that freezing line to crash all the way down here to the Gulf Coast. So definitely a more winter-like kind of look here going into Saturday morning. And then Saturday afternoon as well, another pretty cold kind of February day here with temperatures locked into the 40s here into the mid-Atlantic and then below freezing up here into the northeast. So definitely a pretty cold day for the eastern half of the country. Although back here towards the plains, this is whenever our warm-up begins going into Saturday. And then as we get into Sunday, that warm-up really takes a hold across the entire eastern half of the country. What that's going to do as well is set up the stage for kind of this very cold outbreak to come to an end and get much warmer temperatures here throughout the eastern half of the country. And you can see that here. This is going into Monday afternoon. Look at these well above average temperatures taking over really the entire eastern half of the country. So it's going to feel much more spring-like to start next week, and this continues going into Tuesday afternoon and into Wednesday as well. But I think that's whenever we have to worry about another storm. So this is going into Monday night into Tuesday here with our latest Euro model. You can see we get another storm system to kind of develop here out towards the Texas Panhandle. And I think this is going to strengthen and cause a pretty good swath of snow to the north, but as well as some thunderstorms to the south of this. So we'll go ahead and bring this ahead into time for you. Going into the middle of next week, you can see this get going, and we get some of that heavy precipitation to the south, likely some storms, maybe even some severe weather. We'll watch for that potential. I'd love to get a bit closer to go more in depth with that, but also on the northern side and the western side of this, I do think we get some snow. So going into next Wednesday, Thursday, I think some snow here into sections of the plains while we're dealing with kind of this rainy, stormy pattern to the south of this low. And then that will continue through the middle of next week, potentially bring some snow once again to those interior sections of New England that have benefited so much from snow, it feels like, this year compared to the I-95 corridor. So just looking at that general area that I think we'll see some of that snow. Totals, it's a bit too far out to really talk about totals, but the general area here, I think, into sections of the northern plains, place like Minneapolis, kind of down into Nebraska, sections of western Kansas, and maybe the Texas and Oklahoma panhandle as well, seeing some snow out of this. In terms of those storms, this is our lightning map, so where you kind of see these areas pop up here going into the middle of next week, this is lightning flashes, or how often they're happening. So the brighter the colors, the more lightning you're seeing. And you can see as we go into the middle of the next week, those conditions are definitely more favorable for thunderstorms, here into sections of the southeast and the southern plains with all that warm air in place and that system cranking up. So looking long range, after we get past that first system, I do think we could get a bit of a cool down going into kind of next weekend. So this would be Super Bowl weekend, if you will. Some of our ensembles have been hinting at a bit of a cool down, so kind of maybe a break in the springtime weather, at least momentarily, going into Super Bowl weekend. So we'll have to watch for that. We'll watch for any storm signals that could potentially line up with that and see if we'll be talking snow again for the East Coast or if we're going to kind of lock into the springtime pattern. But I do think overall we're kind of generally getting an idea of more of a spring-like pattern going into the middle of February, but I definitely think we continue to get kind of more randomized cold shots here into the eastern half of the country. And if that can line up with a storm track, we could potentially have a snow threat. But for now, nothing to time out for any kind of specifics. More importantly, right now, we have to deal with this very cold weather up into New England, as well as that pattern flip going into next week and the potential for the return of thunderstorms. So with all that said, again, if you're new here, thanks for watching. I'm happy that you're able to find the channel, even if you don't end up wanting to subscribe. Just happy that I could talk to you today about the weather. And if you're a regular here, then thanks for always coming back. That means the world to me. With all that said, though, hope you all have a wonderful rest of your Thursday, and I will see you all tomorrow for Friday.